Hi, welcome to Coffee and Closers. I'm Nikolai Bedore, and I want to personally invite you to join me and one of today's top performing sales stars for a cup of coffee and authentic conversation. And our collective goal is that you will walk away with tangible knowledge that you can apply to your sales efforts today. Are you ready? Well, grab a cup, fill it up, and let's get into another episode of Coffee and Closers.
Hey everybody. How's it going? Welcome to Coffee and Closers. Another round of applause for Allison Bedore. Thank you very much. All right, I'm super happy to be here today. What a great crowd. I'm glad you guys chilled out a little bit. You guys were very caffeinated at the beginning. All right, I want to introduce our guest today, a good buddy of mine, James Loffler. Why don't you come in here and sit down, James? James is, yep, right, have a seat, buddy. James and I have gone back a long ways. We've known each other for maybe 10 years or so. James has been an absolute rock star sales rep. He's been an awesome sales leader, and now he is the very trusted managing partner for Loffler companies here in the Twin Cities. He and his team have taken this company to be one of the largest managed service providers in the state of Minnesota, one of the top 150 in the United States. He spearheaded 3 acquisitions and has taken the IT division to over 95% growth. All the while, has maintained to be one of Star Tribune's best places to work 10 years running. Give him a round of applause, please. Can you believe we got this guy here? And then, so how many people have been to a Twins game, Vikings game, Wolves game, Wild game, and seen Loffler up on the walls? That's this guy. All right, James. Thanks for being here, man. We're going to do this fireside chat style.
I like it. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so I just went through a laundry list of accolades and things that you and your team have done. So I think a great way to start this all out is, so why don't you tell us your story?
Awesome. All right, so I think first and foremost, it's most important to recognize the founders of Loffler, right, which were my mom and dad. So in 1985, they started Loffler companies, believe it or not, selling analog dictation. And most of us probably don't even know what that is, right? And so watching my mom and dad start this company, the one thing that you would see from both of them is just an amazing work ethic, right? My mom was the CFO and the COO, and my dad was the CEO and lead salesperson. And so growing up as a kid, I remember going into the office on the weekends, right? A lot of times it's not where I wanted to be, but I remember my dad was like, hey, we got to go get some work done, right? And so every weekend, most of the time, I was in the office for at least a couple hours watching my dad. I think that definitely had something to do with shaping who I am today as I watched those two work so hard as I grew up through that business. I went to school here locally. I went to UMD for 2 years, finished up at St. Thomas. So I'm a Minnesota boy. I live in Excelsior. And my first career out of college was a Fortune 500 company called TDS Metrocom. So they're based out of Madison, Wisconsin. They had a branch here in Minneapolis. And so I started in sales, right, the hard way, right, building a book of business, going out and fostering relationships. And I made a lot of calls, and I knocked on a lot of doors. And I saw a lot of rejection throughout that process. But I honestly loved it. It was one of those things where even today, prospecting or meeting new people is one of the best parts of the job for me. And so I was there for a couple of years, and at the time, Loffler was a copier company, right, copiers and printers, and my boss, our CEO, my dad, decided, you know what, we're getting a lot of feedback from our customers that this next wave is coming, right? This IT thing is going to be big. And at the time, we saw it because we had copiers and printers, and all of a sudden, these were becoming smart devices, right? The Internet of Things, right? A lot of talk about that now, but 15 years ago, these devices were finally becoming networked, and into the IT industry, Loffler went. So with his vision, we started a group, and I was actually recruited by one of the local managers there. At the time, I think there was 3 people in that group. And so I moved over, and at Loffler, I was selling phone systems at the first job, right? And then I moved into IT, and then I was managing a sales team. And today I'm a partner of the company, and I also oversee our IT solutions group, which we've grown from 3 people to close to 100 in the last 15 years. And I get most excited about it because the value proposition, what we're bringing to the market, is just creating a ton of value for our customers. So it's been a really fun path. I've learned a lot. I've made a ton of mistakes, a ton of hard lessons, and I think sometimes you got to learn those hard lessons the hard way. And so it's been a great ride so far.
So one thing that I think I always think about when I think of you and the relationship that you have with your family and being in a family business is you kind of have 2 paths that you can go, right? So one path is your family sets you up for success and they kind of hand things to you on a silver platter, or it's like complete school of hard knocks, and it's like, nope, you're my kid, and you're gonna have to work twice as hard to get where you are. And I think that's where you and I have built a really good relationship because I don't come from that background, but I appreciate the fact that your dad made it harder on you to get to where you are. And so if you ever have a chance to meet Big Jim Loffler, he's a great guy, and he's helped shape one of my best friends, so that's pretty cool. So we named this, we had to come up with a name for this episode, so we came up with Changing Perception. And so when I still to this day sometimes when I think about Loffler, I think about copiers and printers. And so what did you guys do in your process and in the sales culture to change the way that the market was perceiving you to be now a technology company?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, I think people view us as an IT solutions company today. I think there's probably folks that still view us as an imaging company. But there's a lot of different things that we've done. You know, probably the most significant is just earning it the hard way, right? Starting small, going out one customer at a time, and doing the right things, right? Taking care of them, making an impact in their business, doing it the right way, which over time feeds into that. On top of that, right, there's been a lot of marketing initiatives that we've had, a lot of branding, right? If you see us at one of the sports facilities, you don't see just copiers and printers. What you see is a holistic approach to IT. I see IT as everything infrastructure, security, cloud, phones. I also see copiers and printers as part of that strategy. And so from a branding standpoint, everything that we do really revolves around this holistic IT solution that's delivered and backed up by world-class Loffler employees.
So in that sales culture, a lot of the big conversation, especially in the Twin Cities community, and I look at my buddy Josh Feedy over there, who is a big proponent of smarketing. Okay, so the fusion or the clash of sales and marketing. So you guys do a great job, hence like all of the Loffler name all over all the major sports venues in the Twin Cities, but yet being able to have that coincide with sales. What do you guys do internally to create marketing and sales marketing as a united front?
So sales is a team sport. Right? There's a lot of people that we need to support us to be successful. From a marketing standpoint, there's a marketing team that we work with, and we take a lot of pride in making sure we've got a good relationship with that team. I think that team is very passionate about the mission that we have, and we're very passionate about it as well, right? So we come together all the time on certain initiatives, and to make sure that we're aligned. I think some unique things that we do to make sure that we're getting the communication coming back to the sales team so that they realize the impact that they're having is we do have a quarterly smarketing letter, right, that talks about all the different stats that we've done, right? How many blogs have we done? How many people have hit the website? What are the initiatives that we set out? Have we executed on those? And I think just having that communication back and forth has been really successful. Again, I think just making sure that as a team we appreciate each other. And I think the best glue is that when you win together, right, and you have success together, right, it just sparks it, it just makes it even stronger. So it's been great.
One thing when I think about your team that you have there is I run into a lot of different organizations, and you have a really, really well-run sales organization. Like, you're a true sales organization. And so I'm going to ask the audience, how many people here are startup founders? Okay, how many people here are relatively new, let's say a year or under in a sales career? And how many people have more experience and are experienced salespeople? How many people have nothing to do with sales and you're here for the free coffee? All right. So we just want to get a gauge on the room. So what advice would you give to, let's put it in the startup founders, because they're selling every single day, and then people that are relatively new in their sales career. What advice would you give those people?
I think, process and salespeople usually don't go hand in hand. You don't think of salespeople as super process-oriented people. But the reality is, if you're going to be successful, you have to understand what the process looks like. And I'm a big fan of documenting what those processes are like, especially if you want to grow your business, right? Because as founders, a lot of times we're the lead salespeople, and we go out and we've done it 100 times, and so it becomes second nature to us. And if we want to grow that business, right, we document what that process looks like. It's like an assembly line, right? And if you take a look at the Loffler sales process, I actually printed it out. It's not going to be the easiest to read, but it is a multi-step approach. And so I would document what your process is, and I would train to that process. And as you work through the sales cycle, especially if you're newer, I would make sure that you're checking in with that every time. Am I following these steps? Because depending on your business, there's going to be some really key moments and steps that you have to check off the list. If you skip those steps, your closing ratio will go down, right? So just, again, know what that process is. Other advice, I think it's important to always be reading different material just to kind of stay motivated and kind of know what's going on in the market. One of the recent reads that I had that's been really impactful in our team from a cultural standpoint is a book called Make a Difference, right? We've all taken the DISC assessment, or we've all taken the Strength Finders assessment. This book really focuses on your communication style and how you communicate with others, which is great to communicate with your clients, but back to sales as a team sport, you have to understand how the folks internally communicate. So in order for me to be successful at Loffler, we deal with a lot of engineers. Think of the personality trait and the differences, right? Engineers, very process-oriented people, analytical, or sales. I don't want to stereotype, but maybe not so process-driven all the time. Understanding how people communicate can really help the teams work better together and drive a better result.
So when we were, full disclosure, we grabbed beers last week to talk about today, and I was not going to have this conversation without some prep and not a couple of cocktails, and so I don't have cocktails in me right now. Promise. But one thing that you said that resonated with me, because I believe this too, is that sales isn't a job. Sales isn't a career. Sales is a
lifestyle.
Right.
And we always talk about that at Loffler, right? It's, I think it's the best lifestyle around, but it's a 24/7 lifestyle, right? You're constantly working. There's a lot of no involved, and you're constantly on. And you got to almost think of yourself like your own business owner at all times, right? What's the best thing that you can do? There's a lot of resources at Loffler to help you, but the most successful salespeople I see at Loffler are really the ones that think of it that way, that are passionate about what they're doing, and kind of build the team around them.
So I'm going to get into, I want to get into process a little bit more in a second. So one thing to kind of piggyback on the question I asked earlier about the advice you would give to new people, I want to think about how you would develop so you've got a very seasoned team, and then you also bring in new people constantly too. So in order to keep those people on the cutting edge, I mean, it's not just about reading a book here and there. You have to continually internally develop these people. What are some of the things that you do internally at Loffler to have such a first-class sales team?
It starts with onboarding. So we have an onboarding process at Loffler to where you come in, there's a bunch of checklists. And a lot of that is just getting to know the internal resources, right? Again, it's a team sport. You got to know the people and how they can help you. There's a lot of different resources. We follow EOS and Make a Difference. So those are some of the books that we start people out with. Obviously, we've got a documented sales process, and so we spend a lot of time, even myself, sitting down with those new folks to really make sure they understand the story and they understand the process and how we can drive that. I'm trying to think of some of the other things we do. I mean, we do have some more tactical training as well. We'll walk them through the process.
So you have a regimented training program. And how about people that have been there for 10 years, right? So is there ongoing training that you guys do to make sure that they're continually driving to be the best?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we do. One, in our sales meetings, and I think this is important, just make sure that you're really relevant and staying current, is that we'll go around the horn and we'll kind of talk about what's going on in the market. And so we have an opportunity to learn from each other on what's working and not working in the field. And so I know that that's been helpful. Also, as a technology company, there is a lot of technical training that we need to have to make sure that we're educating our customers. And so on a weekly basis, we're doing lunch and learn breakouts where we have some of our technology partners that are coming in, that are training on some of those. From an engineering standpoint, we actually have an online portal, a training portal, where we'll actually set up different training courses for those engineers as well. So there's a lot of different things we do to make sure we're keeping the saw sharp.
Sweet. So getting back into process now. So how many people here that have, well, everybody's a little bit in sales. How many people here could outline or give a general overview of your exact sales process? You could. Okay. James, I want to put you on the spot, man. So can you give us an outline of what your sales process is? Now, this is where I think this is hard, and I know that. And a lot of you raise your hands that you could just rattle that off, but I think when you get in front of a bunch of people and someone says, what's your sales process? Someone's going to say, we have a digital strategy. What does that mean? That doesn't even mean anything. Like, what is your sales process?
Right. So the basics of our sales process is we've got 6 steps, right? So we qualify the customer. The next step is, well, actually, let me pull this up quick. So
you can't take this home with you if you want to take it. This is James's deal. He was so passionate. This is so funny. He's so passionate about like bringing some. He's like, can I get like a big ass screen that I can put my sales process up on and just show everybody? And I'm like, no, man, there's windows all over the place, and no one's gonna be able to see it. But so you bring this. You crack me up, man. So funny.
Real quick, 6 steps, right? So qualification, discovery, solution design, close, implementation, and account development. I know this is really hard to see, but underneath every single one of these, you've got like 25 different steps. And one of the areas I'm really excited about recently is we're moving to a CRM where we can track every single one of these steps real time, right? And so I think as you become part of a large organization, you want to have the data. And for me, as we become larger, we've got 15 sites now that are spread across the Midwest. How do I make sure that this thing is flowing through the assembly line the way it should be? And so we are going to have every single one of these steps, and then there'll actually be dashboards in the office that will show SLAs, right? So timing on, let's say it's quoting. How long should it take to quote? Well, it should only take 24 hours. If something isn't quoting through that process within 24 hours, it'll turn red, and an automated set of steps will happen to make sure that it's moving throughout the process. And so, if you want to talk about this later on in the sales process, I think it would be, it's always a fun conversation. But there's a lot of steps to the process, right, at the core.
I want you to name every single one right now.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. That would be horrible and boring as hell.
Yeah. And the reality is, there's different opportunities that are going to flow through that process differently as well. But, and then how do you measure those? How do you measure success? Is it happening in the time frame it should or not?
And I think the one thing that we've talked about is, and you alluded to it earlier, is the most successful salespeople are the most dedicated to the process. And so you had said to me in the past that the most successful salesperson at Loffler doesn't get garbage past step 2. He's got the cleanest funnel, right? And so which is basically opportunity qualification into solution development, right? And so I think everybody in sales has got an idea in their brain that they're like, I know I can make this happen. I know that we can get this thing to happen. And it's not clearing out the garbage early enough. So one thing is I went through your fancy chart here is of step 2, which is into the discovery phase or some solution development. That's got the most number of check boxes that need to happen. And so it's to all of you, as you are always thinking through your sales process, always make sure that you're spending the most amount of time qualifying at the beginning to make sure that they're a right fit, because the chances are, frankly, there's not a lot of really good fits out there. I mean, depending on what you do, some of you have very, very specific businesses, and you don't have a bunch of different verticals like James does. So I think earlier on in the process that you can clean out that garbage, the better.
For sure. Absolutely.
Cool. So you talked a little bit about make a difference, which I'm a huge fan of, and I speak on that a little bit. So I love that you talked about that. How about some other tips and tricks and tools and apps and podcasts and books? What are the stuff that you use personally and that you push down to your sales team so that if there's anything, I think everybody here is always trying to consume new data and consume new stuff. So what is some of the stuff that's on your hot list right now?
You know, from a high level, EOS is my go-to. Right, I'm a huge proponent of EOS. I run it for our executive team. I'm running all the meetings underneath me. It's so important to make sure that our team is, from a vision standpoint, that we're all on the same page. And for me as a leader, to empower the other managers within my team to make sure that they're executing on those things, that we're moving the ball forward, right? Because things are changing pretty quick in every industry. You know, make a difference is huge. I think there's a lot of good data in those books, but to bring it together as a team and do it together, it's something I like to mix up. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to get the sales team together on Make a Difference, and then we'll put together an engineering group on Make a Difference, it's like, oh no, we're going to mix this whole thing up, right? Let's get engineers in with salespeople, and let's use this as an opportunity to bring our cultures together. So we've had a lot of success with that piece of it. I mean, other tools that we use, I mean, CRM systems, ticketing systems, really to automate what we're doing. You know, some of the great sales books that I've read, it's a little old school, but The Ultimate Sales Machine there's some really great time management things in there. Some other great books. What Great Salespeople Do is another great book, and I think how many people, you know, it talks about connecting an emotional connection through story. So another great read.
My favorite sales book right now, and has been for like the last 3 months, is, has anybody read Never Split the Difference? Literally the greatest sales book. Chris Voss, the author, ex-FBI negotiator, amazing. It's like negotiating what we're going to have for dinner. Sometimes. Like, it is the greatest sales book of all times. James, we're running, we got a couple minutes here left, so why don't we finish? I think you get to a point in your career where you've done some really cool things, like that laundry list of things I talked about, and then some of that stuff doesn't become as important anymore, right? Like, you've kind of climbed that mountain, so then it comes down to, what do you want to leave as a legacy? All right, so I think your dad, I've watched him, and he's done a great job of leaving an amazing legacy. So that puts a little bit more pressure on an individual like you to have to leave the same or greater legacy as the people before you, generations before you. So what would you like to leave as your legacy?
You know, I think from a, you know, to frame this up, my personal why statement and the why statement for Loffler is helping you succeed. It's really what keeps us grounded. And I wake up every single day, and I go to work, and I work with our customers and our employees and our partners, and I really stay focused on how can I help every one of these people succeed. And so I guess if I can leave everybody better than I found them, right, I can feel pretty good about what I'm doing every single day. I think the culture at Loffler, from a helping you succeed standpoint, is really shaped who we are as an organization, right? There's a lot of technology companies out there, but I think Loffler, based on the feedback that I've heard from other employees, feels different, right? And it's because at the end of the day, it's not about making money to us. It's about helping other people succeed. And when you have a cause like that, it makes going to work every single day awesome.
Yeah, a little altruistic.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank James Loffler for being our guest. If you could give James a round of applause, please.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right, so what do we think? What'd you learn? Well, if you like that, check out coffeeclosers.com for upcoming episodes, recordings, and more. And don't forget to check out our sponsors. Each one has been hand-selected. They are best in class. Until next time, we'll see you at the next Coffee and Closers. Cheers.
Say live, come on live a life we love. Gotta live, I said live a life we love.